everyone, and welcome to this super secret mid-series sort of reveal of a Talkback episode for the Between on the Bad Spot. Yes, I know, I'm not Jason. Big sad. But my name is Fiona, and I'm the producer for this amazing series. And because we've got a spare session, I thought we'd just invite the whole residents of Hargrave House back to just have a chat about how things are going, how are they enjoying the series and whatnot. So yes, we're going to spend like the next 45 minutes, 50 minutes just sort of chatting about what we've been enjoying about the series, any sort of top tips they have for people who are just tuning in, and yeah, just saying how amazing this system, this actual play is going, because it has been amazing. And I say that as someone who's been lurking in the dark watching this and pressing buttons and going like, do it again, every so often. So I will just go straight into it. And why don't we just introduce ourselves in general, just in case people are listening audibly and not visually. So yeah, as I said, my name is Fiona. I use she, her pronouns. I am, you know what, we could do a visual description of what we are wearing. So I'm a white woman with sort of long browny hair, and I've got a very interesting shirt on. It is my partner's shirt, I have to say that, but it is a Hawaiian shirt, but it has cats on it, almost like stained glass, and also I've got some stripiness underneath it to really clash with it. I'm going to hand it over to, we'll go from sort of top left around my square, so we're going to go Michelle, then Jess, then Matt, and then Wren. So I'll hand it over to Michelle to introduce themselves, pronouns, and your visual description of what you're wearing.
Hello everyone, I'm Michelle Kelly. My pronouns are she, her. I play Ms. Cecelie Quinn, and I am a mixed race woman with medium brown skin, long straight black hair, not curled as it usually is when I'm Cecelie, and I am wearing also my partner's shirt, which is a short sleeve button up. You might notice a theme if you keep listening, and it's kind of a blue with orangey fern plant patterns on it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Jess, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, I'm Jess Jewell, pronouns she, they, he, reach in, grab one, don't care. I play Dr. Eveline Mortimer, and today I'm wearing also my partner's shirt.
Hey!
A theme is emerging, which is yellow/orange with sunflowers and or the sun on, but in full like me goth style. I've also got a waistcoat on under this because I don't feel complete without it, and I'm blaming Mortimer for that now. I have long black straight hair, and I'm very normal.
It's under the shirt.
Oh yeah.
No, you don't have to open the.
I think it's real happening. Oh, beautiful!
Wow.
Oh, wow! Don't get that on other mid-season Talkback episodes, do you? And beautiful.
An
Matt,
outfit change this early.
Yeah, Matt, please.
Now,
Jason
please
would
put
be
it back
proud.
on. You're messing with the theme.
Over to you, Matt. Go on, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Matt. I go by he, him. I am a Caucasian male who is 6 feet tall, who wears glasses. Has been told he looks like Ben Fogle, if that helps, but I don't see it personally. I play Haskell on this run through, but if you're a fan of my channel, you would have heard me chuntering to myself for probably 100 hours by myself. At this point, so you're probably sick of me talking. And yeah, hey, what else have I got to say about myself? I'm wearing a blue Hawaiian kind of floral print shirt that, to break the theme, is actually mine and not my partner's. So I did the decent thing and dug into my own extensive collection of pattern shirts. And I'm glad that everyone else has followed suit.
Amazing. And last but by no means least, Wren, please introduce yourselves for us.
Hello, I'm Wren. My pronouns are they, them. I am a black non-binary person who currently has brown and black twists in their hair and wearing, what shape is this? Hexagonal glasses. I'm wearing a Hawaiian themed tropical shirt that is mine as well, so Matt is not alone. That is red at the base with palm trees and some lovely women dancing down at the bottom that you can't see, but that's fine.
We just imagine it. Amazing. Yeah. Oh, thank you, guests, for indulging me in our wonderful visual descriptions of how cool our shirts are. Yes, we are actually wearing these shirts in honor of Jason, who cannot be here with us, because if you've watched anything with Jason in recently, and also follow him on all his various social medias, it's got an incredible wardrobe, and we're all very jealous. So hence why we're sort of honouring him whilst he is not with us today. So, friends, obviously we've had a couple of episodes now, 6 episodes of The Between so far, and a lot of us, it's their first time playing The Between. I know, Matt, obviously you've run a whole campaign of The Between. I've played a couple of sessions myself, but for 3 folks here, Wren, Michelle, and Jess, I wanted to get your opinions to start us off. So, when you came into this game, what were your expectations, and have they changed? And if they've changed drastically? Question mark. Yeah, I'll just throw it open as like what were you expecting off the sort of the pitch that maybe Matt gave you?
Well, I've played a little bit of Brindlewood Bay, and the Silk versus RPG as well, which are both using the same kind of core system. So I kind of had an expectation that it was going to be kind of the same thing. So I've been really kind of surprised by the fact that although the core kind of mechanics are kind of the same at the base of each one, like this is a very different kind of game. I really have enjoyed like just how much actually it works, even having a lot of solo scenes and duet scenes. I'm usually like not hugely into that in my TTRPGs. I love to just interact with everybody, but I love the way that the Between works kind of allows you to have lots of character moments, even when technically your character is on their own. You can still be feeding into each other's stories all the time, which I really like.
I think for my part, I didn't really have any expectations because I haven't played any Jason Cordova things before. Everyone loves a 2d6 system nowadays, so that's that's the only common thread that I had. But I was really excited to play something a bit more horror, as I don't really get to very often, which is odd because it's what I like most in this world. But no, it's kind of similar to what Michelle said. I'm really not used to like having as much solo time as you do, but I really enjoy that even in those like short moments that we have, we kind of have to like craft our moments together in a way, and it actually has some kind of benefits to us to find ways to work together and to play off of each other in certain ways. And so yeah, I've been really enjoying it. I did not know what to expect coming in, and I'm very glad to be here for this now.
I echo pretty much everything that Wren said. So I've never played a Jason Cordova written game, but I've played Trophy Dark, which was published by The Gauntlet, Jason's company. And the similarities in the narrative style of play, which I really, really resonated with in Trophy Dark. Trophy Dark in a way rewired my brain, and playing The Between has cemented that rewiring in how I want to play horror games. Because I think it was like Matt Colville ages ago that said, like, for example, D&D isn't a system about anything. It's so ambiguous it could be applied to anything, whereas like Call of Cthulhu is cosmic horror, and you know it's cosmic horror. The Between knows what it is, and it is unapologetic in the way it brings it across. And the way that we've played it over the last couple of weeks has every single element of it has been designed to let that horror build. The duets, they're never actually like, we're very rarely together, and that puts me on edge because I never know what everyone's going to do. We'll have like before the game we'll have a chat, absolutely, but we're never in the same room. It feels like discussing the plans as to what's going to happen. It's like we've all got our individual ideas, and even that being a source of horror is just so well done. So I'm beginning now that I understand how like narrative play works in comparison to like a more dice heavy and like combat mechanic system, beginning to sort of learn how to not min-max, I'm trying to think of the word, be more efficient with play and actually get to where we need to be, but while also honoring the narrative thread that we've sort of all woven together. But yeah, I'm having a lovely time.
It's interesting how you guys say that. Like, yeah, when you do those sort of solo scenes where you go off and you do your vulnerable scenes and you're never all together discussing stuff. Because obviously I get the pleasure of sitting here like listening to you guys, and then we'll go to a break. But all of you have got into this habit of staying in the break as you guys have to talk to each other to find out what are we going to do, which is hilarious because I'm the one that has to say to like, right, go get some water, go, But I think that just shows you how much you like it's this structure that the Between has, and a lot of the Gauntlet games have this idea of like this is how you play, and I think some people would find it quite jarring of not having the full group being able to discuss things. So I find it fascinating that you're all listening in, you do sort of the panto player like, oh my goodness, we're going to help that person but we're not in the scene, and then it's like, okay, we have 5 minutes together as us to plan what we're doing. It's an absolute joy, and I appreciate obviously the people watching it at home because of the way we've edited, we don't see those bits, but I think it's fascinating because as you said, Jess, it sort of rewires your brain of how you are thinking. And just to go to Matt briefly as well, because obviously you've run this system before for people who had a mixture of experience of having played role-playing games and some who hadn't at all. Like, for you now being on the other side of the screen, how are you finding it? Suddenly not having all that control and now being at the whim of 3 other players who maybe don't want to go out and find the horrors.
Well, that's the thing, is that like running this game as a keeper, you don't really have that much control for the majority of the session. It's only really the night phase that you get to do exactly what you want to do. You follow the characters around and they do whatever they want, and you give them the narrative reins, and they take you where you're going. And that's what I love so much about this game, that it's the responsibility of telling this story is very equally shared between us all. And to your points that you're just made, like it's kind of like a Blades in the Dark thing, isn't it? Like, that game understands that the most boring part of any RPG is the characters sitting around in character discussing a plan of what they're going to do. So it just cuts it out and starts what you're doing, and then you just build the plane in midair, right? So with the Between follows on from that kind of principle. Jason will ask us, generally out of character, what do you want to do today? Okay, nice one. Right, then we'll make up some scenes, and then we're going to go and see what we're doing from there. And what I love about the Between and what it does in a role play sense is it actually creates a scarcity of role playing that you then feel like has a big ticket value. So that we each have on our playbooks 12 mask prompts, right? We get 12 opportunities to tell our story, and they're finite. We are going to get only so many scenes. We, like me and Michelle, haven't shared a scene yet in 6 episodes, and like it still might not happen. Like, but the thing is, I know that when it does, we need to make it count, and we don't want it to be about planning how we're going to like stab a vampire, because that's dull, right? You want these big character moments to shine. And the genius of the Between is like, the gameplay loop revolves around vulnerable scenes. So like, you're not having a character scene where you're discussing the plot or discussing what you're going to do each day. You are exposing your soul to someone else who is in a very similar position to you, and you are also given the briefest of opportunities to talk about your past. And that's super interesting, that like you limit the amount of role play that actually happens in a game, and make sure that everyone dials it all the way up when they do it. And when you've got this kind of like gothic vibe to it, everyone has to play into it, right? Because it's ludicrous. The stuff we're doing is ludicrous. So you have to really lean into it. But just quickly, I will say the difference for me, and coming over to play, because inside scoop, everybody, like I wasn't going to play in this campaign. I shouldn't be playing in any campaigns. I was going to run this, and then Jason volunteered to run it, and I was like, oh god, now I've got to be in it. But the biggest challenge for me, right, is the restraint I'm showing to not say things that I know are in the threats, that I know are on the sheets, that I know is in the game, because I don't want to in any way jaundice anyone's play and like influence anyone's decision. So like there's whole threats that have come and gone that we've resolved that we didn't even touch half of, but I've not led anyone anywhere, and also I've not suggested going somewhere that Jason hasn't suggested. Like I've not because I don't want to say, hey, let's go to that warehouse that I know is on the sheet but you haven't mentioned, because that's out of character, right? So it's killing me every week. These things that I know, and also I think it kind of almost came up a little bit last week, like Jason said at the end of the session. So in last week's episode, I fell foul of like what the third child of this run so far, when I got pulled into the dapper Christmas child's weird playhouse. Like I chose to go to that house because Jason brought it up, but that's not in the threat. That's not in either the St. James's Street Ghost threat or Sally No Face. And I thought, well, that's interesting. He's thrown something in there. I'm gonna go and look at it. And then when we finished the session, he was like, "Oh, thanks for pushing that, because I didn't really know what I was going to do with that." And now you all know why. It's not in the threat. So he was just kind of pulling that out of his ass as we were going.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been quite a challenge to me, to turn that part of my brain off. That's like, oh, actually, I don't know all of this stuff. And I'm really pleased that we're playing the Nutcracker, because that's a threat that I've never played before, because that's that was like a Christmas limited edition release. So like I know of it and I know vaguely what it's about, but I don't know anything about it at all. So that's really nice to kind of get into that. And also some of the threats have changed as well since the edition.
Well, Matt, I need you to know about it, because if we don't solve it, the campaign ends. So
yes, another thing. Every single threat, every single episode, there's like a new thing that could end the game or end a player. The Secret of Miss Quinn, I can't remember which episode. Was that episode 3 you guys got? It was like if you get this, you two retire if that rolls and fails. That's mad. And then Brathwaite coming in and being like, cool, one of these threats is going to become just one of my agents. That's something that happened. And now, oh yeah, if we don't solve this whole campaign, it escalates. It keeps escalating somehow, and it you'd think it's overwhelming, but it still feels balanced, which is wild. How does that work? I kind of love it though.
I do wonder. A cynic in me goes, does Jason just want this to end? And it's just like throwing it all at you, like, let's finish it now. Not at all. But that's yeah, because I'm seeing this going like, oh, this is cruel. I need more of this though. Yeah, I think it's great.
The sense of mounting urgency, I think, is really neatly tied throughout every aspect of the game. It's like the sense of urgency in like the limited roleplay opportunities. It's like, I've got to make this count, this conversation. I've got to make sure it's like a useful or like an exciting or interesting conversation. Like, I've got to make sure that I do something that's going to help, otherwise the whole campaign ends, or maybe I'll just have a bath. But if I'm gonna do something that isn't working towards like the main goal, there's got to be like a good reason, like a good motivation for my character to do that. Really feeds into like the horror of it all, and it's I love that, because I think that I'm never a huge fan of like horror games that just lean too much on like gory descriptions of nasty things. It's like, well, everyone's going to be uncomfortable by that, but the sort of psychological sense of like, oh, there's a clock ticking and there's another clock ticking and we're just about keeping ahead of it, but it could go wrong at any moment, that really brings a sense of horror that I love.
I was rewatching the St. James's Street Ghost episode when we start that, and our faces when Jason says there's a baby, that is pinnacle horror. That was awful. There was no jump scare, there was no gore. It was just the prospect of a child that was wrong. 100%. It was introduced at such a, because Matt, you said that usually the St. James's Street Ghost is played first, or it's recommended you play it first, and in this instance it's been played third. And even being played third, we with the two other sort of threats that we'd resolved at that point, that escalation to the baby was still there and still awful and so much more terrible somehow. So again, each of these threats, none of them feel out of place or less or more than any of the others, even if they do have that additional sort of compel. What's that? Need to get done. Word has left my mind completely. But yeah, all of them together in the series we've had them so far just keeps building that tension higher and higher and higher.
I want you all, lovely audience, to know that I was exposed to the horror of the haunted baby through a different route, which was the Discord chat just constantly dropping references to a scary baby. And I'm like, what did you all do? What did you all do while I was gone?
What didn't we do?
We did nothing wrong, Jason.
You're like, we didn't do anything. It was Jason. It was Jason. By the way, Gastrel's dead. I'm like, you killed Gastrel.
That one.
Plausible deniability. He absolutely fell.
Yeah, that if anything, that is our top tip. If you're running this game remotely, and obviously someone can't make it again, the between works for as little as sort of 3 players. So if someone misses it, that's fine. They just have to endure the random Discord messages of just GIFs and memes and all sorts. So yeah, I highly recommend that. And just be like, I wonder if Michelle will ever understand. But thankfully, we've got it recorded, so at least you can look that back. If it wasn't recorded, even better, you know.
I want you all to know I only listened to it the day before because I was very busy, but I had seen somebody post in the Discord chat an image of a baby crib that was a catapult, and that was what I had to indicate what was going on.
The baby lister. I love that we both remember 2 different things. This is fantastic.
The Trebuchet, I think it was. It was also called as well. On that timer thing, like Kidapult, that's right.
There we are.
The timer thing is interesting because that's a new addition to the game. So in the old edition, on the threat sheet, so like to give you an idea of like what Jason is running, like the threat sheet is one side of it's 2 sides of A4, and that's it. It's very skeletal, it's very brief. Even like the locations and the characters that we're going to run into are just a sentence or a little description, and that's it. They're just little grab bag bits. You can just pick up something and run with it. And generally running this game is finding the things that your players respond to and just running with that. And just like we haven't met half the characters in all the threats. Like it's you know, it's really interesting the way this game works. But there's one little section on the sheet that says what to do if the hunters ignore the threat, and there's just a general guideline of like, oh, things might escalate, but there's no end goal. So to have the new edition say, right, well, they got 5 night phases, and if they don't do this, then you know London's going to be full of vampires, which is like a really, really great thing to do. And like there is one threat in the first edition that's on a timer, and it is Roger the Reaver, the one that that we've got going, that you've got the 3 nights to solve it before the mother dies. But like that's the only threat that had a timer or any actual hard consequence for ignoring it or letting it slip.
Which is interesting because within this game, it's the one that has the least kind of consequence on the larger story. And so, of course, I have become obsessed with it.
Yep, that's how it works.
Well, in the true undeniable fashion, I know that you've said that, like you just said, Michelle, that like if you're not contributing towards a story and not the threat contributing towards the threats, you can't really, you're not doing something, and there's all this pressure. In the campaign that I ran, my undeniable in episode 7 fell in love with a character that I won't say in case they come up, and never involved herself with a threat ever again. And we played 14 sessions, and she was like, "Am I ruining things?" And I'm like, "No, you are being the undeniable." She basically the whole back end of the campaign was her affair with this person, and
incredible.
It ended up being wound into the finale, so it was like it made perfect sense as a whole, and her story was amazing because of it. So you can just do what you want, kind of thing.
That feels so Penny Dreadful that you'd expect that. I feel like I watched that in season 3 basically happen between Eva Green's character and the guy who plays like Dracula. I'm fairly certain that was just season 3. I've not watched it in a while, so don't quote me on that. But you can play it so many different ways. I think initially when we started playing, I will admit, quite confused by the rule sets because I'm not used to narrative roleplay, or narrative game sets. So I was looking at all of the masks and I was like, I've no idea what these mean. Does the past and the future, do they have different meanings? Like what happens if I use them? It got much more simple when we realized, no, the masks are your lives. Your conditions are a progression to having to use a life. And then moving forward from there, you just don't want, is it the blood-covered gate or something like that? The very final
portal.
Yeah, you don't want to be forced into using that at any given point. Your masks of the future have more consequences attached to them. Your masks of the past are more narrative-driven. But ultimately using any given mask takes away a life. Once that sort of solidified in my mind, I was like, oh, okay, I should be reserving these. When Jason gives me an out and says you don't have to use a mask, I should do that. I should take the out instead of, but the tasty narrative role-playing like opportunity. Yeah. Woo! Jess didn't weigh that up when that happened when Gestrel went to stab her. Didn't consider that. I was just like, narrative roleplay opportunity, let's go. And then afterwards, once that sort of clicked in, I was like, oh, that was a dumb move. Sounded great, but it was a dumb move.
That's all it is.
And conversely, like you've got a mask, the blood-soaked portal, the one that we all have on our playbooks, one of the few that's the same for everyone, which says when you mark it, your character's retired and you have to describe how they're destroyed physically or whatever. We've got complete control of that. Like Jason can kill us as many times as we want, but we can keep coming back. But like, if we feel like in a moment that our time is right to go, you mark the mask, the final one, and you get to tell your story. And I've had this discussion with Fiona before that like games in which you have control over your character's fate and your destiny, that's a really profound thing. And it's also like having a game where these opportunities for story and for character are finite, but also the game's finite. We know that after 12 sessions, we're done. We have to tell the best version of our story that we possibly can. And knowing that our stories end allows us to just fully lean into making those as good as humanly possible.
I want to quickly move us on to another new thing that's in this campaign. So the unseen is one of my favorite things from the Between in general, this idea of having a parallel story happening at the same time whilst you're all going out and having those echoes in the night, all that sort of thing. But with this, the new version of the Between, the fact is like, we're not going out tonight, lads, we're staying in and exploring this house. Sounds incredible. And I think, yeah, we all experienced it when we did that first Hargrave House scene and we opened this room and we all got this move. I think everyone's faces was like, oh my God, we could do so much, but at what cost? So I just wanted to bring that up because I feel that that's an interesting one, because I feel like the unseen for me as an improviser is, again, what Jess is just speaking to what Jess said about that narrative stuff. I'm like, oh, well, I can really go into it. And we have done with our beautiful unseen scenes, but then bringing it so close to home and then like unlocking an NPC that's going to be there that has her lungs gone and terrifying, so I just wanted to bring that up because I'd not experienced that idea before of like, again, something similar to that narrative roleplay, but it's out there and we'll never see it again. And I was like, no, it's here with us and we're going to constantly remember what happened. I was going to say, does anyone have any favorite mechanics or like flashbacks they did or anything like that? It's just to speak on that a little bit. That's what I was going to suggest.
Yeah, it was interesting you said that we all experienced that Hargrave House night phase for the first time, because Jason also did, because that was the first time he'd ever run it. He didn't write that room of the house. And it was really, I think we all felt it when we played, that was like, we were really in it right then. And it was really cool. On Discord, the woman who wrote the threat got in touch and kind of replied to us and said that was exactly how she had intended that to come out. And it was like, we brought it to life in the way that she really wanted to see it brought to life, which was really pleasing.
It's such that mechanic in particular, where it's sort of that, it sort of blends into the sort of scenes in the night, and then within the room itself, having each of us describe a stage and then having the next person build on and build on and build on, remembering all of the details from those sections before to make it as immersive as possible, I think led to one of my favorite bits, which was when Michelle described and I cannot remember the name of the couple, but the desperately unhappy married couple. And you managed to build in the superintendent, the way that she did her hair, the way that like so much of what we'd already established, and then you brought it crashing down with the murder of both the superintendent and the husband. Just really great narrative storytelling and improvising, because that's not easy to come up with on the fly. and you built it so well and paced it so well, and that was like arguably of all like those scenes that we've done, that was my favorite. That was that end stop that just mwah. Really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed that.
Thank you. Yes, I am amazing.
Oh, she's here in the room. Where does Michelle begin?
Oh no! Where did she come from? Get out of here,
Cecelie! Thank God!
Get out of here. Yeah, no, I agree. I love doing those collaborative stories. When you know, when Jason kind of like allocates who's going to do each bit, I usually like I won't read past my one because like I want to be surprised, and like it's just so exciting. I love it. I'm like, oh, this is happening now. Like it's great. I love those. I love the way we all build together. So exciting.
I think with the Hargrave House scenes, especially because we have that timer that's going on in the background, I'm always thinking about, I want to learn so much about this house. Maybe if we pace it out like every 3 episodes, we could just like take a side journey into the house. It won't affect things that badly because I really want to know more about this place. At the same time, I don't want bad things to happen to London in general in the now times, but I really enjoy getting this opportunity because again, it's one of those like limited role-playing things that we have throughout the game. It's like we only have so many opportunities to try and learn things about the house. We only have so much time to complete these little missions. We only have so much time to learn things about each other, which I actually love. I'm taking it away from the Hargrave House for a second and just going back because in regular campaigns, if you have a backstory, it's very much you're reliant on sometimes the GM and for your backstory to come up, and it might not for a long time if it ever does. Like you might try and help things along, but you're really and then here your backstory is a thing that helps you, 1, move the game along, 2, survive, and you actually get to tell it in the way that you want to tell it and not just like at the whim of someone else, which is so fun. And I really enjoy from this setting, especially in a horror game where things are happening all the time.
It's non-stop. It's like being an adult. I do want to say, like, as soon as you say the Hargrave House, you got stuff at the house, it's just me going like, I've got so many DIY stuff to do, but there is a vampire outside I need to sort out, so we'll do the DIY shelves later. Yes, exactly. So no, but I absolutely hear you on that, trying to balance and have that enjoyment. I assume, again, depends on how this series ends, of course, whether or not those folks who haven't read the Between before will go instantly and read all the secrets. You know, I don't know about you guys. I've not done that myself as someone who has played in it, but I am sorely tempted after watching you guys play it. So,
well, in the new edition, there are 50 rooms to explore.
Love it.
So we've seen.
wow.
So like we're the first group that have, you know, obviously they've play tested it, but we're the first group that are doing it kind of like as an AP or whatever. So
What do you mean,
we're probably
50?
Yeah, right, 50. So we're probably going to do maybe 1 more, maybe 2 more. So like, and there's 50 they came up with, and some of them I've seen what some of them are, but like this is why, right? So we're playing with 4 fairly kind of standard characters or playbooks from the core 6, but this is why you bring an explorer, because the explorer may be a dreadful imperialist bastard, but they do have an ability that lets you have 2 night phases in 1 session. So you could have a Hargrave House scene and a London night scene and do them both at the same time.
That's like saying
one or the other.
That's like saying, oh, we've done 6 hours. Should we go for another 6? Yeah. That's exactly
Matt,
what.
we could get so much done.
We could. Yeah. What I would say about what Wren said when they said about, you know, the backstory in more traditional games being you're at the mercy of a GM who is already planning so much for a session and he's given 6 other players backstories that they've got to learn and somehow weave into the story. The reason I like games like this, and the reason the Between in particular is my favorite game, is because it's like, that isn't storytelling, right? I'm not disparaging games like D&D or whatever because they're great fun. You want to play them, great. But like, you're not really telling a story. You're getting bits of it out there, but that's not really how a story is told, right? To play this, we've all got rich backstories that we've come up with based on some prompts, and you get the spotlight shone right in your face, and you are and the great thing about it is we are all listening. We've all played in campaigns of other games where someone's talking about, oh, my mum the blacksmith, she was cursed, and you're like, okay, fine, I'm just looking up what I'm gonna have for dinner tomorrow or whatever, because that's not really an efficient way of telling a story. When we're telling a shared story and we could have the narrative reins put in our hands at any second, we have to be ready and we have to be listening to each other. So I know that Haskell complains about how you treat him in the house, but like, I am the biggest fan of all of your characters, and I am desperate to learn what all your prompts are, what all your masks are, and what all your deals are, because I've no idea.
Backstory in every other game I think I've played, especially in more combat heavy and mechanically sort of something that we're sort of looking at playing at the moment is Lancer, and it's so many gears and cogs with regards to dice rolling and mechanics. Something we've played recently as well is like Wrath and Glory. Again, it's big dice pools. It's trying to beef yourself up to do the most damage. It's, in terms of how I like to play, I like a narrative give. I love being able to dive into backstory of each player. I like asking people like where they come from, like what's their motivation. I want to find out what drives them, and then to either kill that or find a way to make it really fun. This does it for you. I've never played a game that is so invested in the characters instead of the wider world, the story itself. Does that make sense? I think the between comes from a place of love for the tropes that have been pulled from Penny Dreadful, and it is building out each individual character as much as humanly possible, and then the threat almost feels like secondary almost. But I love the way that we get to tell that story about us and about the relationships we have and about each other and play in, but it's so coded to building character. And that's what's really got me hooked on it, which I really love. So yeah, I'm just going to add that in.
Oh, awesome. My sort of penultimate question. Obviously, you guys already picked your playbooks before we did the character creation on recording. I'd love to know, did you folks have any other ideas for other playbooks? Or were you quite set as soon as you read one, it's like, this is the one? You know what I mean? Was there any sort of like umming and ahhing until like maybe 5 minutes before you're like, done, just out of interest, because obviously there's loads of playbooks. I know Matt's mentioned one of the Explorer, but yeah, I just wanted to know, was there any restrictions? Sometimes I know from my own game with Jason, when we did a 2-shot, he restricted actually the mother role because it was like, we don't have time to explore all the things in it. So I'm just curious, was there any that you were like, oh, I would love to try, if I'd had a chance to go again, would I have gone for a different playbook?
We did have the restriction of the core 6, which is the 4 that we picked, the Explorer and the American. And we did have one of the new expansion. Well, it was in the first edition, but it wasn't in the core book of the Legacy, which is basically the Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So that was our restriction on what we could pick, because some of the other playbooks warp the game quite a lot.
Yeah. Well, in that case, would you have played a different playbook then, perhaps? Or were you interested by another one?
So we all sort of gave in 3, remember that much. And then the 2 other, that Mother was my second choice. My first was Vessel, but I wasn't really tied to either. But Vessel, really, I loved the feel of it. And, Penny Dreadful being one of the favorite sort of TV shows, I wanted to be Vanessa. I thought that would be really, really fun. But Frankenstein as a character, and like Dr. Frankenstein himself, and the historic portrayal of Frankenstein, I've never ever been able to get over the want and the need to bring something to life, that scientific curiosity. Van Helsing's one of my favorite films of all time. Don't judge me, please. But the Frankenstein character in that the film sets off with, I love that trope. So being the mother, being the Vessel, it was one or the other, but I'm really, really happy with the mother. Like, really happy. I love her a lot.
I hadn't watched Penny Dreadful before this started, and I'm still not finished with it. But I always like. It's gonna sound so bad. I always enjoy playing characters that are just a little bit off. And so with the vessel, I was very much like, my favorite one. If I can have this one, please, that would be great. Because I like the thing I enjoy with Phoebe as a character is she starts one way and then kind of you can start to see like where the cracks are, and then the cracks just keep expanding outward, and I like taking a mirror and smashing it wide open. So it's that kind of trope. I cannot remember what the others I had picked were because they are irrelevant.
Fair.
But yeah, no, I think I was really, not that I had like my heart like dead set and I couldn't play anything else, but I think I just really like the Vessel playbook was the one I was interested in. The only thing that gave me pause was I think the Vessel has a bit more sexier elements to it in some of the options that you can choose, and I was like, how do I do this on camera? But we'll see about that.
That's a problem for the later Phoebe, you know. That's
yes.
I think I said I would go for the American if somebody else was after the undeniable, largely because I've always found it very funny that there's a cowboy in Dracula and no one talks about it. No one talks about this. There's just a cowboy in Dracula. Everyone's like, oh, spooky novel about a vampire. There's a cowboy there. We need to talk about this more. So that was largely my motivation for being intrigued by the American. But I also wasn't sure how much of the audience of your channel, Matt, are American. I didn't want to burn any bridges by committing to that accent for such a long AP.
It's nearly 70% of my audience.
Well, listen, I've performed American accents occasionally, but usually just in a one-shot where there's room for me to run away or, Fiona, as you know, die. So I am punished for the American accent by having my character die. So the undeniable, really, though, I was really drawn to it straight away. I read The Picture of Dorian Gray when I was in my teenage must read all the Gothic literature phase, and it stuck with me so much. Like the exploration of like kind of what morality means in a time where social mores are changing so much and are so dictated by social forces, which the majority of, I mean, a time which, you know, you could argue is still true, but like the majority of the people in a place are not of the class that are shaping societal ideas of morality. And the idea of how somebody entering into that world, their morality is affected by like conventions of morality versus perhaps like more real realistic kind of face-to-face what happens and what are the results of your actions outside of etiquette and what we're supposed to be doing. I just find all of those themes really fascinating. And I also think that you know, this game has so much juicy stuff. I'm really fascinated by like Victorian melodrama, that sort of theatrical convention of having these over-the-top worlds, over-the-top archetypal characters who just everything is the most dramatic thing that's ever happened. And like finding a way to make that not silly, because it can get silly, with a character who's just like, she can do whatever and she knows that there aren't really consequences, but eventually there will be. So having like a world full of like very dramatic characters and having somebody who kind of feels like doesn't really matter really appealed to me, because at some point it's going to matter, I'm sure. So that's just juicy to me. But yeah, I think I would have had fun with any of the playbooks because they've all got their roots in like beautiful pieces of Gothic literature that my teenage goth Michelle just give it to me. But I freaking love The Undeniable. Oh, you just get to be such a bad person. What fun.
Yeah, the good thing about the Undeniable is that they are explicitly bad, and then we're all awful, like, but the Undeniable is explicitly so. So leaning into that is so much fun. But I chose the Factotum mainly because I knew I would be playing with 3 people who'd never played the game before. And someone had to get stuff done, and I can't do the American accent, so it's like I pick the action oriented, because I think Jason said it in the first episode. Like, the Factotum is incredibly limited, and that's another reason that like I can't guide you. I knew that I wouldn't quarterback things and like tell people what to do. Like, that's just not in my personality. But if I just like removed all the mechanical ways that I could do that as well, then there's literally no danger of me guiding anything, but accepting the fact that I'm going to have to go off on my own and deal with a lot of stuff, because that's just how it's going to, because the game is better when we're all doing our own thing, and the game really shines when we're all perhaps pursuing selfish motives. Like when my Undeniable in my home game disappeared for half the campaign, that was the best thing for the campaign, like, and it was the best thing for that character. It was incredible. So like, when Jason tells us at the start of each day we can do what we want, he'll just follow us around, that's so true. But for me, I need to do some threat stuff, or like I need to be dealing with the loose threads of the narrative, and whilst also getting to tell a bit of my story of like what Haskell's deal is,
and killing every child that you see.
It was a vampire, not technically a child.
That's true. Yeah.
I always Haskell reminds me of if you've seen the television program of What We Do in the Shadows, the human yes
Guillermo.
Exactly,
oh my word,
exactly, Guillermo, desperately trying to keep everybody alive while all of the assassins are coming for the vampires, and the vampires are just swanning around being self-absorbed. Like, that is the Haskell energy, and I love it.
All right. So then my final question to my wonderful residents of Hargrave House is, if people obviously been watching this series, if they're like, wow, what a great cast, Matt's okay, but everyone else is amazing, I need my hands on this book, I want to play it. Can I have your top tip for how you would play or run this game of The Between? And I'll hand it over and we'll end on that. So yeah, what is your big tip for playing The Between?
I'll say my tip from playing is just to really use the day phase to do what you want. It's the only time that the keeper's going to let you do that. And I said when we went to resolve the Gastrel situation, we'll call it, like, I had a plan for how that was going to go in my head, and then I was like, Jason can't mess with this too much. And then 5 minutes later, I was in a Roman bathhouse beneath the surface of London. And, that's kind of how that goes. So if you have stuff that you want to do in the story and stuff that you think would be good for your character, like, put it in the day phase and try and get as much of that done as possible, whilst the challenge is whilst trying to investigate these threats and stuff, and think of scenes that you want. Just think of like situations that you want, because you can frame those up in the day. The day belongs to us, the hunters, and then the night is that awful man Jason is in charge. But yeah, that would be my one big bit of advice. And the one thing I didn't really appreciate when I ran the game,
even if he's not running your game, Jason is in charge of the night.
Yep. Fun fact, that's the toppest tip.
I'd say that the big thing again, so I after figuring out that masks were lives, after that clicked in my head, the next thing was the Dawn questions. Because in order to get those sweet experience points, to give your character more to do, those 2 questions that you get to change every dawn do so much. Lean into them. So, they are designed to be at odds, or to really push you with what you do with those narrative choices that you have. With Mortimer, the ones that I tend to go back to are putting hands in a pile of guts, putting secretly engaging in different behavior, and also really leaning into reason. and dispelling all possible other explanations, which has led to some really fun role playing every single time. If ever you are not quite sure which way you want to go, the dawn questions will give you a direction and an idea, and then you also know that you're going to get something quite physical out of it at the very end. So I would definitely use those to your advantage, because they are so much fun and they give you so much opportunity to build. It's so great. It's alive.
I would say, do not fear bad dice rolls. Embrace failure, embrace consequences, embrace disaster. This is not a game where you try and do something and you roll bad and the GM says, oh, you don't get to do that then. And everyone goes, oh, and you've just walked into a brick wall. This is a game where you try and do something, and if the dice roll quote unquote well, something happens. And if the dice roll badly, something happens. Maybe you get to put on a mask and narrate an exciting bit of backstory, or maybe something goes horribly wrong and it's going to open up a whole new part of the story to you. This isn't a game about being a hero and playing to win. This is a game about what's going to happen next. So just roll with the punches and like be free of the need to win and to like always succeed at everything, because some of the most exciting bits for us, I think, have come from the times when it has not gone as planned, and that's part of the joy of this game.
I think one of the benefits of this game, and I keep talking about masks, you know what's going to come. So if you have one of those bad dice rolls and you need to use a mask to save yourself, you always have them. So you don't have to like think about paragraphs and write down your entire backstory somewhere else, but you can think about the first question ahead of time. And if you're not someone that's very much into like improving on the spot, like, oh god, I have to like think of my backstory and say it in a way that's interesting, you can think about it before the game. You can think about it over breakfast in the shower. Like, you don't have to do it right then and then. You can just have an idea of what you would say should this come up, because it likely will come up at some point, and then you'll just have it in your pocket. I tend to, if it's something I think is important, I'll prepare like at least like a bullet point, like this happens in the backstory. And then it'll be like, okay, I need to use this mask. What did I think about? Oh, thank God. Okay. And it'll be there for me. Because sometimes your brain just turns off and you're like, oh no. And we're here now. So I think just because you have all this opportunity to like think about things to say to just help the narrative keep moving, and everyone's listening to you and they're very interested in what you have to say, trust me.
And on that mask point as well, is that like it's really good to have an idea but not be like fully attached to it, because before this campaign started, I kind of had a pretty good idea of where I wanted to take Haskell, and I knew that like I wanted him to be a thief, and that built into his vice. That's a custom vice that I just pulled in from somewhere. And then I kind of knew what that first mask was going to be. But in the first session, and the way that played out, and the way that Haskell ended up being kind of like an overlooked, completely ignored person that no one gave a shit about, I was like, oh, actually, I'm going to change this quite a lot. And I have kind of dialed a certain element of that up, which hopefully as we go through will kind of come out with the masks as they go. But there was like a moment in the first session, I won't say what it is until we kind of get to the end, but like where I was like, oh, this is how the others see Haskell. I know what will be fun. Let's show the complete opposite in the flashbacks. So I've really pushed the masks, and I'd never seen a factotum that was an actual criminal before. Like they're all like, you know, they've all got fairly prosaic or mundane ways of entering the service or whatever. But yeah, but that comes from kind of what Wren was saying about being prepared, is like having that is a really good thing, but then also being able to change, because you're not committed to it. It's a prompt and it's a bullet point you're going to be reading from, essentially. So having somewhere to pivot to if you need to is a good bit of advice.
Mortimer was straight as a board. She wasn't meant to be gay. Now she is. It happens because there are so many beautiful little details for you to use. Lean into it. It's fantastic.
Amazing. Oh, well, thank you, my wonderful residents of Hargrave House. We're halfway through the series. I'm sure everything is going to plan. We're not panicking about anything. I know we need to go away and do our own little talk about like what's going to happen next, but thank you all out there who've been watching this series so long. I hope you're enjoying it. Let us know in the comments. Let us know any questions you have, because as Matt has alluded to, there will be an end of series sort of like talk back as well. So if there are any questions, put them on the video, the sort of comments below as well, and let us know. Like, subscribe, all the cool things that all cool kids do. That's awful, I know. With all that, we're gonna awkwardly wave until the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.